Well, welcome small group leaders. This particular study is going to be going on for a number of weeks, and so this is your video basically to be able to help you through your study, through coping with your circumstances or getting through what you are going through. All of us go through losses in life. All of us feel the challenges in life. All of us are going to have that carpet pulled out from underneath of us, and we're going to hit the ground really hard, and we're wondering if we're going to ever be able to get up from whatever happens. I want to go through the losses in life, and I want to help you understand these losses in life, and I'm kind of hoping that you'll be able to come through this with the hope and confidence that once you give your life to this, or you start to practice this, you give your life to Christ and God, and you're relying on God and others, that whatever circumstances come in your life, you'll be prepared for the trials that you will be faced. When you feel huge loss, your life just hits you out of the blue, takes the wind out of your sails without any warning at all, and you wonder how you're going to cope with such a loss, because a loss is such a big loss. There are things that just really will strike the core of your life. There are things that just come out and just hit you upside the head, and you're just not ready for it. And I'm here to try and help you be ready and prepared for when these things in life happen to you. And I want you to also know that there are 6 phases that you will go through when you are hit with an emotional crisis in life. First, you're going to go through shock. Then you're going to have sorrow. Then we're going to talk about struggle. And if you're fortunate enough to get to the next stage, it'll be surrender. And then restoration, and then finally you'll get your life back after you surrender, and you'll get re-engaged in life again. In Ecclesiastes 9:12, it says that people can never predict when hard times will come. Like a fish in a net and birds in a trap, people are caught in sudden tragedy. Sudden tragedy comes just hits you when you least expect it. Just the news, it just takes the wind out of your sails. It could be anything in life. It could be an unfaithful spouse. It could be a death of a close friend or a relative, loss of a job, loss of anything. And when you get this news, you're just trying to process the news. What does it all mean? Well, the first stage when you get this news is shock. You're just trying to reel back. You're trying to understand what was been said to you. In Jeremiah 5:30 it says, "A horrible and shocking thing has happened in the land." Jeremiah is taken aback, and he's looking, wow, he's in shock. He's in the state of shock. He's going, what in the world has just happened? You see, that's the Bible is filled with people that are just in shock about things that are happening and going on in their life. In Ezekiel 3:15 it says this, "Then I came to the captives of Tel Aviv, who dwelt by the river of Chebar, and I sat where they sat, and remained there astonished among them for 7 days." He was so taken back, so much in shock, he couldn't do anything. It literally paralyzed him for 7 days. He sat there for 7 days. And then you got in Isaiah, "Therefore my loins are filled with pain. Pangs have taken hold of me, like pangs in a woman in labor. I was distressed when I heard it. I was dismayed when I saw it. My heart wavered. Fearfulness frightened me. And a night for which I longed for turned into fear for me." When you see something like this, when their heart is dismayed and trembling with fear, they are astonished. They are experiencing the first stage of bad news, which is the shock. They're taken back. They're processing the feelings. It's a deep-rooted gut problem. But let me tell you about 3 conditions that you might be that anybody is going through at one time that you should be aware of. The first condition is you know somebody who is going through an emotional crisis in life. Another stage is that you yourself are going through a crisis in life and trying to deal with the things that are happening to you. You're in a state of shock. And maybe you're past that shock, but you're in some kind of an emotional crisis right now. Or there's a third thing here, that you're getting ready to go through something that you have yet to go through. It's just on the horizon, and it's about to happen. Everybody's going to go through some form of loss. Crisis and tragedy happen all the time. I want you to be prepared when these things kind of happen. I want you to be able to stand up in midst of times when bad news and loss come into your life. And I want to look at three things. And because this is a small group, I'm keeping this lesson very short. I want you to look up the scriptures that are there, and I want you to fill them in as I go through them, and then hopefully you'll have a good discussion afterwards. Well, the first thing is, when you find somebody in shock, okay, helping somebody that's in shock. What do you do when somebody else that you know has had a terrible tragedy or some kind of a loss, and they're just in shock right now? The Bible tells us that we as Christians are supposed to help each other. It says in Galatians 6:2, carry each other's burdens in a way that fulfills the law of Christ. So as your small group and as a church, we're supposed to help each other, carry each other's burdens. And when we do that, we fulfill the law of Christ. Why? Because we are loving our neighbors as ourselves. We love them. So we are to help them and carry them along, okay? So what do you do when somebody that you know is in shock? First of all, you just need to show up. You just need to be there with them. You don't have to say a word. You could just be there. Don't wait for an invitation. Just show up. Even if you have nothing to say, or even if you don't know what to say, just show up and be there with them. Job has some friends, when he was going through despair, he lost everything, his family, his wealth. Even his wife wanted him to curse God and die. But it says in Job 2:11, listen to what his friends did. It says, when Job's three friends, Eliphaz and the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, Zophar the Naamathite, heard about the troubles that had come upon him, they set out from their homes, met together by agreement to go to sympathize with him and comfort him. See, his friends went to comfort him. And that is what true Christianity is all about, to sympathize, to comfort, to help, to show love toward one another. And that's what we should be doing. So the first thing is you need to show up. The second thing you need to do is you need to share their pain with them. You don't have to do anything except share their pain. I remember one time I went to somebody's house and they were going through some great distress. I got there after they got the news. I got to their house before they did. And before they even got all the way in the house, I went out to meet them and I just gave them a big hug and we cried together right there at the threshold of the door. You see, I just showed up. I didn't say anything. I just gave a hug. What a person needs when they're in shock really is just touch. They just need you to be there. And listen to what Job's friends did. In Job 2:12 through 13, it says, when they saw him from a distance, they could hardly recognize him. They began to weep aloud. They already began to weep. And they tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads. Now, we're not going to do that today. It's not our custom. But we're going to be there for them. But listen to verse 13. Then they sat on the ground for him for 7 days and 7 nights. No one said a word to him because they saw how great his suffering was. They didn't even say anything. They sat with him for 7 days, didn't say a word to him. They were just there to cry with him, to sympathize with him, to help him. They didn't even have to say a word. Okay, the next one is, I want you to take the initiative. Don't wait for an invitation. Just go there. Take the initiative. If they need a meal, if they need a lawn mowed, whatever, try to take whatever burdens that they have. The worst thing you can do when you talk to somebody who's in shock is tell me what you need. That puts the burden back on them. We want to release the burden off of them. So the first thing is take the initiative. Just go do whatever you need to do to help them. Take them a meal. Do some laundry. Whatever it is, go grocery shopping for them. Bring them some food. Help them through this state of shock. Don't wait for them to ask and tell you what they need. Just go do it. Take the initiative. In Proverbs 3:27, it says this: do not withhold good for those who deserve it when it is in your power to act. So just go do good for them. Help them. Okay? Now, I want to go to another one. The second one is, what happens when you are in crisis? What to do when you're in a moment of crisis yourself? The first thing you need to do is you need to cry out to God. Okay? This might seem very simple. And also, when you're in a moment of shock, it almost seems like an impossibility. You wonder, why? Why, God? Why'd you let this happen? But it's the first thing that we should do. In fact, in Psalms 50:15, it says, and call upon me in the day of trouble, and I will deliver you, and you will honor me. When we cry to God in our distress, whatever that distress is, if you cry to God, even if you're complaining to God, not complaining about God, complaining to God is worship. Complaining about God is disobedience, okay? You want to cry out to God, and you can, he already knows how you feel. But when you do that, you're calling to him. It's actually a form of worship to him. And that's what it says, that you honor God when you cry out to him. And in fact, Lamentations 2:19 says this, arise, cry out in the night, as the watches of the night begin. Pour out your heart like water. Pour it out in the presence of the Lord, and lift up your arms to him. Lift up your hands to him. So first thing you do is you got to cry out to God. The second thing you need to do is you need to let other people help you. A lot of times when you're in the moment of shock, moment of crisis, emotional crisis, you want to recluse in. You want to go hide. You want to go into the back room. You don't want to let anybody in. But that's the last thing you should do. The first thing you need to do is let others come in. Let others help you. In Proverbs 17:17 says this, a friend loves all the time. Your friends love you. Those that are around you love you. Let them help you. And it says, and a brother is born for adversity. What does that mean, adversity? We're born for adversity? Well, it was never intended to be that way, but the problem is, since the fall in the garden, we are born into a world that is fallen and broken. So this means that we're going to face loss, we're going to face trouble, we're going to face trial. So we're born for into this adversity. We're born for adversity. But in that adversity, because of the fall and the curse that fall upon man and fall upon the world, that adversity, with friends, we're supposed to help those that are going through this adversity and trials in life. So you got to just let others help you, okay? Don't recluse in. It's the worst thing you should do. When you're in shock, the natural tendency is to withdraw from everyone. But I'm telling you, don't seclude yourself. Let other people help you. And then the third thing is, don't make any major decisions when you're in a state of shock. Don't make any decisions at all. Because when you make decisions when you're in a state of shock, 9 times out of 10, you're going to make the wrong one. And the other thing is, don't let anybody pressure you. Because a lot of people will come to you, are you over that yet? Are you over that yet? Let me tell you something. When you're in a state of shock and you're going through an emotional crisis, there's no way to go around it or over it or under it. You have to go through it. And if you go through it, and we're going to talk about grieving, when you go through it, you will come out on the other side more healthy, and you'll be able to know that God's hand was working all the time. So don't try and go around it. Don't try and seclude it down. Don't try and suppress it down. You need to go through this grief. Okay? Okay, now preparing yourself for an emotional catastrophe or an emotional crisis. I remember way back when we were preparing for Y2K. If anybody who remembers that, the Y2K, all the computers were going to crash when we went from 1999 to 2000. Well, the computers didn't crash. We got through that just fine. But the thing of it is, companies were preparing just in case something were to happen. It's the same thing that we have to do in our life. We can be prepared for the emotional crisis that comes into our life, whatever those things may be. And here are some things that you can do. The first thing you need to do is cultivate strong relationships. The reason sometimes people don't come and see you is because you've never reached out to them. So the problem is not always the other people, sometimes it's us. If we haven't cultivated good relationships, if we haven't poured out our life to other people, it's really hard for other people to pour their life into us. The thing is now, the way to be prepared for a crisis that comes into your life is to cultivate strong relationships. There's no such thing as a Lone Ranger Christian. Even Lone Ranger had Tonto, and he had other people around him. Okay, God created a spiritual family and a physical family. The physical family is great, but you know what? The physical family is changing too. Sometimes people die, they move on. Sometimes they struggle with that. But we also have a spiritual family, and that spiritual family is the church. Okay, the physical family, sometimes it's changing, and sometimes the spiritual family in the church is changing, but being spiritually fed in the church should never change. That is for you. So let your spiritual family help. Let your physical family help. But the thing of it is that you are not born to be a Lone Ranger Christian. Let other people help you. Ecclesiastes 4:9-12 says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their work. If one falls down, his friend can help him up. But pity the man who falls and has no one to help him up. Also, if 2 lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered. 2 can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands are not quickly broken. So let other people help you. The other thing is, make sure you have a good relationship and a close relationship with God. Now, I tell you this all the time. What you need to do is you need to be in prayer and study of His Word, and in communication with God at all times. Okay, if you know, if you have a strong relationship with God, you will be able to have strong spiritual roots that will help you in your time of crisis. If you don't, you have strong relationship with the Lord. If you don't have a strong relationship with the Lord, you won't be able to get through the crisis very easily. You blame God, you recluse in, and we're not going to rely on Him. We're not going to see His blessings through the crisis. Jeremiah 17:7-8 says this: "But blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in Him. He will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out the roots by the stream. It does not fear when heat comes. Its leaves are always green. It has no worries in the year of drought. It never fails to bear fruit." And that's the way it is if you're intertwined with God. I said last Sunday that the big redwoods out there in the sequoias and the forest of the redwoods, there's these big, huge mammoth trees. They're 400 feet tall, and they're one of the largest living things on the planet. And they usually grow in groves. And the reason they grow in groves is for protection. Because even though these are mammoth trees, the roots don't go very deep for the size of the tree. What they do is they spread out and they intertwine with other trees. And because they're in groves, guess what? They help each other stand up. So when a storm comes, each tree is helping itself stand up. That's the way we should be too. It's like that tree planted by the water. Its roots are always close to the water. If your feet are planted in the Word of God and upon God, and you have a relationship with God, guess what? When your storm and your emotional crisis comes in, you're going to be like this tree, and you're going to still have green leaves. You're not going to fear. You're not going to worry. You're not going to like the pain. It still hurts. The suffering is still there, but you're going to be able to stand and still have green leaves because you're planted on the water and the Word of Jesus Christ, and the storm in life is going to help you get through. So make sure you have a really good, strong relationship with God. Let me end with Colossians 2:6-7. I know this is a short lesson. I'm trying to keep these to 5 to 10 minutes. If you really want to look back more, go back to the message. It's up on our website. You can watch the whole service and sermon where I elaborate a little bit more on these things. But let me end with this. Colossians 2:6-7 says, "And now, just as you accepted Christ Jesus as your Lord, you must continue to follow Him. Let your roots grow down into Him, and let your lives be built on Him. Then your faith will grow strong in the truth you were taught, and you will overflow with thankfulness. Let your roots and your life be rooted in the Word of God." Now, hopefully you'll be able to get all these things written down on your study guide. When this video is over, have a discussion about this. Maybe share some things in your life that you're having a crisis, or a crisis that you've had, and when you had God, when you didn't have God. But try and encourage one another, and then learn how to apply these truths to your life. So God bless you. Happy small group, and I will see you on Sunday. God bless you. Bye-bye.